Hello everyone, this is Adnan with CanApp's training videos. This is Citrix XenApp 6.5 video series part 4, and this is the fourth video. In this video I'm going to show you understanding session controller session host roles that is newly added to 6.5. Now the main purpose of these two roles that are added inside, so I would say they are sub roles in 6.5. Now a XenApp server, once a XenApp server role is installed, so basically we have three major roles in there: XenApp server, web center, web interface, and and the licensing server. Now within XenApp server, once we select XenApp server, by default it becomes the very first server becomes the session controller. Basically it is known as session controller and session host. Now session controller is a server, a XenApp server that can take part in ZDC election and can become ZDC if it is the first server, or if the first server goes down, then a XenApp server with session controller role can take part in election, can become ZDC. Whereas session host is a XenApp server that can host applications. If a XenApp server does not have this sub role, then it won't be, it cannot become, it cannot host applications. So in this video, first of all, we're going to go to where and how to see these sub roles, and how to see and we can see how to kind of enable or disable these roles. Secondly, once this is done, then we're gonna hopefully go through zones and worker groups. So let's get started. Now with this, in our environment, we have DC with licensing server. Here is our licensing server. This is a Citrix server. Citrix server, Citrix 1, Citrix 2, this is client machine. Citrix 1, let's jump on to App Center. App Center starts, runs the discovery, connects to our server, and so discovery went fine, connected to our farm. So the very first thing to see that if this is a session controller, we can go directly onto zones. So first of all, we can see that here we have two servers, one in Montreal, one in Toronto. Now I created these Montreal and Toronto folders just for video number 3, where we just were testing out custom permissions. I'm gonna move this under Toronto because basically both servers are in Toronto. So these are the two servers, and let's go on to zone. We have only one default zone here, and here it says election preferences. First one is most preferred, second one is default preference. Now this simply means is that this is a ZDC currently, and if this is somehow not available at any point in time, this will become ZDC. Now since both are saying this is most preferred, this is default preference, it means session controller role is installed on both of them. Now there is a way to remove this role from both of them, and the way is so this is Citrix 1, this is Citrix 2. So first of all, as you can see, both of them are session controllers. Now I'm gonna go on to second server. What we're gonna do is first we're gonna see elections in action. So how do we see if this becomes elected ZDC? And the only way we can do this somehow, or we can kind of disconnect this server from the network, or we can shut down the server, simulate a crash of the server. Then we can see that this will become a ZDC. So this will be most preferred automatically. But before doing this, we can also observe this here. If we take this down and then go into this one, and open App Center. In few moments you will be able to see under default zone that the second server will become a preferred host, will become a ZDC. But at the same time, Citrix provides us some counters in Performance Monitor with which we can find out if the election is happening or not. So while this is starting up, so here we can see two servers, most preferred, default preference. If instead of default preference it would have been NA, not applicable, it means that session controller is not on this server, and we're going to check that out later. For now, both servers are working fine and both servers have session controller. So let's see. So in few moments I'm going to take this down and let's see if this changes to the. But before this, there is another way to find out if election is happening. You can go to administrative tools, you can go to performance monitor, and from here, actually where is it? So from here you can go here. So for now it's just showing you the processor time on this server. I'm gonna remove this and I'm gonna add another counter, and this time I'm gonna add just a Citrix counter. So you can go up here, find Citrix. Citrix elections counter is part of this meta frame, and right under this you can go down to, should be something called zone elections. So here we're gonna click, remember to select this and then click add and then press OK. And here it won't show you much here because it should show you a graph when it happens, but election doesn't happen all the time. So this time we're gonna change it to report. In report it's saying 0, and as you can see it's kind of a bit blinking. It means that it is keep on checking if election is happening or not. So we're gonna put it on the side here, and then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to this server, and there are two ways to simulate a crash. We can go here and disconnect the network card, or we can go in, we can just power this off. So for now I'm just gonna disconnect the network card, which means that this server is not available on the network. Now let's jump here, because that server is not available. In few moments you would see this number will be changed because it is constantly checking, and at the same time this will be changed to in here showing that which one is preferred at the moment. So refresh, it will take few moments here. As soon as this changes here, this will change as well. Now in this case what we did, we just take this down. This is simulating that this is not available. And let's see, refresh. So election happened, and here let's see, actually so election happened and this changed. So this is now the ZDC at the moment. Actually this is most preferred, you won't find it here, this won't change because this is most preferred at the moment. But what you see is election happened and this one became ZDC. This one became a ZDC. Now let's trigger a second election by bringing this back in. So what we can do is, connect this back. Soon as it is back, let's go back. There should be a second election. So election automatically happens when the servers are added to the farm or removed from the farm, or the server goes down. So, and since this is a most preferred, election should happen. So you would see it happened again, and then I think this currently this one becomes a ZDC. So this is how elections are happening. Now, the second part of this is that how you can configure one server as a ZDC and the other server as maybe just a session host. Now, in order to do this, I need to show you. So on Citrix 2, we're gonna remove the controller role from this. So in order to do this, I need to open server role manager. Need to open server role manager. So I'm going to remove session controller from this so that this cannot take part in election or cannot become ZDC. Whereas best practice is in one zone, you should have at least two session controllers so that if one goes down, the other one should work. So I have just clicked open session role manager. Sometimes it just takes more time. There is a quick tweak to this. I can go into Internet Explorer and see there is one quick configuration that you can uncheck that can open this server role manager faster. Go to Internet Explorer, enable menu bar, go to tools, go to Internet options, go to advanced, and under this you can go down to here, this one. Just uncheck this certificate revocation. So basically whenever server role manager starts, it goes and checks for the certificate CRL. So we just disable this. Once you disable this, you would see that this time it should open almost immediately. So this open. Okay, so since we clicked few times, that's why it's this up. So our main goal was to remove session controller role from this. So what we can do is, first I need to unconfigure XenApp server from this. I'm gonna go to edit configuration, and I'm gonna say remove this server from the farm, apply, leaving current farm. Why? It gave me error message. It's not leaving the farm. So facility 3. Finish. Try again. So I just closed it, and let's see that this server, so we just tried again, it worked. So once it is worked, it will come back to this. Now here you will configure it again. Once it starts, you would say add this server to the farm. Now this is like you're adding a new server to the farm, and here add this server to the farm, existing database, just like the first time you added. Here provide the name of the server that has the farm. So this server has the name of the farm. Second, it would ask you for the administrator password. Test your connection. Working. Next. Here we'll leave this as is, and here is the place where now you can select, should it become a controller and session host, or should it only become session host. So this is where now on the first server you don't have the option to change these. It automatically becomes a controller and a session host. Controller can take part in election, can become ZDC, can help in authentication, can have dynamic database, and session host has host application. So that's the main purpose of XenApp. Here we're saying no, don't make this machine as a controller, just enable session host on this. So enable this. Next, apply. When this is all done, we'll just reboot and we'll see how does it look like. So I'll just reboot this machine, go to Citrix 1 here. If I go here, it says that it's not available because I removed it. Now once this comes back, we'll see that how does it look like. So now here we'll wait for this to come back. Came back, and let's log in. Logging in, not, and here all you need to do, refresh. I can see this now. Do you see the change? This cannot take part in election because this is not a session controller. So this is how you make a server a session controller or not a session controller. A server that has a session controller role, or you can say feature or service, that can only take part in election. So, and the best practice is in one zone there has to be at least two. So if one goes down, then the other one can take over. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to this role manager again, and I'm gonna edit configuration. I'm gonna remove this one more time and add session controller following the best practice. So in the meantime, it is kind of doing this, reconfigure. No, I need to do existing form, existing database here. Test connection, okay, next, and here we're gonna say controller and session host, and done. So once this is done, it will reboot again one more time, and it will become a session controller. So reboot, done. We're gonna come back and see that this will be added. So after the reboot, as we can see that our second server is available here as a default preference. Before it was NA, which means that if it is NA, it cannot take part in an election, basically because it is not a session controller. So now this is a session controller. Now second thing from the slides, what we need to do is we need to understand zones and worker groups. Rather, zones, worker groups and zones. Now, first of all, worker group. Now, worker groups are used mostly for assigning or dedicating servers to a certain applications. So, for example, if this application is in use by many users, and we want to dedicatedly assign some XenApp servers to this application, we can create worker groups. Worker groups are also used to assign specific policies to some XenApp servers. Now, worker groups are just special groups with special servers, XenApp servers. If you don't create worker group, environment will still work, but worker group will give you an added value in which we can separate a group of servers and can assign specific applications. So let's see, I have this application, and this application I want to dedicate it to some server. Let's say I want to dedicate it to Citrix 2. So in this case, what I can do is I can go here, create a worker group, and this worker group, I'm gonna name it, so you should name it accordingly. This application, in this example, I'm gonna create a worker group for especially this application. So application, and then I can go add worker group, say farm servers. Here I can go dedicate this to Citrix. So now a worker group has been created. And then the second step is, once worker group is created with this server, all I need to do, go into Notepad and then here you can go to application properties. From here you can go to servers. In this you can go assign a worker group. Now you might have, once you create that application, this might be assigned to your first server. You might see that server, you can remove that server and add a worker group. So now this is how we use worker group. You create a worker group, assign a server, and then assign this worker group to a notepad. This is one way of doing it. Now second way of doing it is that we can create a worker group and then assign it to a Active Directory OU. When you assign it to Active Directory OU, then what happens in this case, if you have a worker group, then we need to assign servers manually to this worker group. But if you connect this to a OU in Active Directory, whatever servers are added to Active Directory OU, they'll be automatically part of this worker group. And in order to do that, we can go again back into the worker group properties here. Before we selected farm servers, and this time we can select a OU, or you can select a group as well. So here I'm going to select container, add, and in this case I can search for OUs. So here I have these OUs. Now before this video I created a OU called Notepad, and inside Notepad I placed one of the XenApp servers. Here I can assign, as you can see, this is the name of the OU that is sitting in this domain, in this OU, in this, which is in this OU, and the name of the OU is this. Now any server that is part of this OU, that will be part of a worker group. That's the main advantage of connecting worker group to a notepad. So this is about a worker group. Now secondly, zones. Zones are used mostly to reflect your physical architecture. If we can look at this diagram here, so zone basically refers to, this is one city you created a zone, and this is a second city that you created a zone for. So this could be complete Toronto XenApp servers, these could be Montreal XenApp server. Important thing is, in one zone, in each zone there has to be at least one data collector. So in this zone, this is data collector, and data collector will talk to data collectors when they need to communicate with each other. Now we already know that these are all XenApp server, but this XenApp server has a session controller subrole, and it also has a session host. It might not have a session host, but definitely it is a session controller. Because of this, it becomes a data collector. So let's create two zones in our environment. So zone are created like this. You can go here, say create new zone. In this, we are going to call this, let's say, Montreal zone, and then we already have a folder called Montreal, but in this case we do not have any servers in there. So first let's move this server in Montreal because we want to use Citrix in Toronto. Let me cancel this. Actually, let me copy this so that I don't have to type it again. So first move this into Montreal servers, actually folder, and then let's create a new zone. And then here we created a new zone. We can select Montreal. Now this server, so this server, meaning this server is physically sitting in Montreal, and I'm creating a zone for this. Secondly, this is a session host, and it will take part in election because we added a session controller to this. So it is a session controller, and next and done. So now we created a second zone. So you have two zones now, one zone for Toronto, second zone for Montreal. Now if you ever need to remove this zone, now there is nothing that you can remove right from the zone here, and since we're going to use these two servers in Toronto, so I'm going to remove this zone. How to remove the zone? First of all, you go to the server and right click on that server. Actually, first go here, right click on the server, and you need to go to the zone, go to the server, right click, and you say change membership. So you're changing the membership from here to default zone. Now the same server is moved here. Zone is removed because zone does not have anything. Now in default zone you have both servers. So basically zones are used for zones are used zones are used for the server for physical location. Worker groups are used for dedicating application to certain servers. Worker groups are used for dedicating application to servers. And then we also discussed session controller and session host. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video.